All right, so welcome everyone. Glad that you could all join us this evening. If you're an attendee, you'll be seeing the images of the panelists only. If you have any questions or comments to any of the panelists or anyone else, please type them into the chat and we'll be monitoring that, and we'll try to make sure we get your questions answered as soon as they come up. We do typically start the meetings with any announcements we have about the CPC, the Northwest CPC specifically. And I'm pleased to announce that we have a new vice chair for the Northwest CPC, and that is Jeff Miller. So congratulations, Jeff. And thank you very much for stepping up to take on this new role with us. Okay, we have, let's go ahead with our APD updates. Commander Sanchez, can you tell us what's new and exciting in the Northwest?
Good evening, everybody. Just a quick update. Again, we do have a few things that we're doing now. Just to give you a little bit on the last month's statistics. I did go through the numbers, and we're doing very well on our property crimes. Right now, we had about a 26% decrease compared to last year with property crimes. Unfortunately, with our assaults and batteries, that's where we took a little bit of a hit this last month. We went up probably about, I believe it was about 13%. So, you know, it is a big increase. And I think I mentioned in the past that with our area command, because we do have, for the most part, lower crime rates, anytime we have a small increase, the percentage goes up pretty high. And the same thing when we have a decrease, you know, it's just because of our low numbers. But we are trying to, we have some plans in place, some POP projects and other operations to try to get those numbers reduced. We are starting an operation up in the Cottonwood Mall area and some of the businesses there. I think it's being that these restrictions are, you know, allowing a lot more people to be out there and be outside and gather. We're really concentrating, especially on the mall. Because when, you know, that's when we're going to see a lot of potential victims for some of these offenders, and so we do have some operations going on with that. Other than that, we continue to try to make sure that we answer you know, all those calls. I know some of the concerns that came up with regards to the response times, we are working on that and trying to come up with new ways to try to reduce that. So
excellent. I've put in the chat a link to the Northwest Area Command crime stats. So you can click on that link and you can look through all of the statistics and year to date and year after year. So a great way to see what's going on. You can also link from that page. I believe you can link back to crime mapping, which will give you a map and show you where incidents are occurring. Some of those are crimes, some are incidents like traffic stops and that sort of thing. So technically a crime as well, but not necessarily what we may think of as a crime.
you know, I did want to make one announcement. I almost forgot about that. So next, or on the 25th, or this coming Tuesday, we're going to be having our town hall for the Northwest Area Command. That's going to be at 6 o'clock. No, I'm sorry. It's going to start at 5 o'clock. I don't want to give you the wrong time, but it's going to start at 5 o'clock. You know, I encourage everyone to pass it on and have them log on to the site to hear. I think this is going to be really, really good. All the other area commands have done it. And, you know, this is a time where we get the opportunity to have some of those hard questions asked with regards to how we are involving ourselves with the community, the concerns that the community may have, and the way that we're, you know, that we respond to some of those concerns. try to get down to some of the, sometimes some of the issues that come up with regards to law enforcement and certain areas of our community. So I really encourage everybody to log on to that.
Excellent. And that will be done via Zoom. So there's a copy of the information is on the agenda. And I've also put a link in the information into the chat for anybody that is interested in joining that. We are the last area command doing this. The others have already occurred. So they've got the science down, as it were. And as the commander said, this is a really great opportunity to speak with not only our command staff, but also with Northwest officers. So I hope everybody can join us for that Tuesday, starting at 5, going until 6:30. All right. And let's see, do we have Sergeant Silva with us? I can get back to my proper window here. Sergeant Silva, do you want to give us an update on recruiting?
Sure, thank you for having me. So quick update on recruiting. We've got our class that's in session right now. We started with 57, we're down to 51. We've had some that got injured and some decided it wasn't for them, and we parted ways with them, and well.
Oh.
And he's gone. So we'll see if we can get him back momentarily.
I can just follow up for the sergeant on class. The 51 that we still have is still doing well in our academy class. As you know, that some people get into this business and they determine that this is not for them. That's what has happened to the other people who have dropped out. They have their own reasons, but obviously law enforcement wasn't for them. So, but that class is tried, and the sergeant is going to be busy because I'm going to help him out on the recruiting thing. We're looking for an additional 70 individuals to join our class in the fall. So get with Sergeant Silver there, contact the department, and sign up if you have an interest in working with your community and the Albuquerque Police Department. Sergeant, if you're back, I was just helping you out there a little bit.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think you covered it. Like I said, no hard feelings for those that decide that this isn't for them. We wish them well, but ultimately that's probably the right choice if you join in and make that decision. That's what it's all about. So, and again, the class for fall, we've got some ambitious goals for that one, and we're going to do everything we can to meet those goals. We're recruiting in-state. We're still recruiting out of state. I think that recruiting is something that we have to evaluate as we require a diverse department, and we're going to do everything we can to reach that goal. If that means recruiting folks from out of state that are looking to join law enforcement, then that's what we're going to do. A lot of traveling as far as try to make that testing more accessible to folks that are wanting to join from out of state, especially in the Texas area. We have a lot of interest from there. But again, and if anybody has somebody who's interested, we'll do everything we can in the recruiting department to help them achieve that goal, become a police officer, including helping them study, giving them tips and tricks on getting in shape for the police academy, and prepare for every part of the process. So we'll do everything we can. And unfortunately, we do lose a lot in our backgrounds process, and that's our control. I mean, I can do things somebody study, something that's in their background that would be a disqualifier. So we'll do everything we can to get them to that point. If there's any questions, I don't really have much else to say. I can certainly answer any questions.
When does the current class graduate?
So this class should be graduating around December when we're looking to start our next class. We have a CNM class that's going to be starting now in August. 20 will be seated in that class.
Excellent.
So we're kind of going to have overlapping courses or classes going through.
Very good. Always good to hear that the numbers are coming up, and good to see full classes every time. So
Yeah, but
excellent.
Eric, the question, how does that equate to the retirements?
That's a
I know
really
we
good
have an
question.
aging workforce. Yeah,
Yeah, we've
it's tough. I mean, I'll tell you, I belong with a military schoolhouse out there at the base, and we teach special ops. And some courses we have an 8% washout rate for the operators, and some of them their background checks weren't completed before they got there, and then we wash them out because of background check. Everything they say here, the military is experiencing the same thing.
yeah, and it's as Sergeant Silva said, it's if somebody decides that this is not the field that they want to be in, much better to realize that early and move on to something else than, get through the entire academy and field training and then say, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So good that the folks have made it that far, and good on them for deciding that this isn't what they want to do.
Right. And it's important to, understand that those that, sometimes people get injured in the academy through no fault of their own. That happens. And we don't just part ways with them and wish them well. We try to get them back to the next academy. So we do have some that were injured or suffered some sort of medical, personal medical problem, and we will recycle them essentially to the next course if they so choose to.
Good to hear. All right. I don't see any questions for Sergeant Silva. So,
I just have one.
Go ahead, Tom.
We had spoken a number of years ago about doing exit interviews with officers who leave the department. Do they do that at the academy? If somebody decides they want to leave, do they look at it and see why they want to leave? Is it money? Can they make more money in Denver? I don't know. Do they have exit interviews with the academy?
No, not with the academy.
Actually, Pete, this is Lieutenant Saladin with the academy, and actually we do conduct the exit interview, and more often than not, the cadet who is deciding to part ways will document their reason for leaving in a memo to the chief.
Okay.
And I apologize. I thought you were speaking about the people who are currently hired as police officers who resign or move on.
Well, that we had asked for as one of our recommendations a number of years ago. I don't know if that was ever implemented.
I believe Human Resources does do exit interviews.
Yeah, the latest we got from Chief Medina was that has been implemented, but I don't know if the data from those is being compiled in any way. But hopefully that's something that we can talk to the chief's office or Human Resources about, get an understanding of what's going on with folks leaving. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Sergeant Silva, and thank you also, Lieutenant Saladin, for joining us and giving us those updates. Always good to hear from you both.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And our main feature this evening is Rebecca Monette who is get your title here, right? The APD Implementation Unit Manager. And she is going to give us an update on the Independent Monitors Report 13th edition, our 13th report from the IMR. Becky, it's all yours. And I think you're on mute.
There we go. I thought I unmuted before I started. Thank you. I am, as he stated, let's see, I'm sorry, there we go. Can you all see this police emblem here? Gotcha. Okay, so I'm here to provide an overview of the most recent Independent Monitors report. APD is monitored by an independent monitoring team led by Dr. James Ginger. And the individual team members are Mr. Phil Coyne, Mr. Dan Giaquinto, Laura Kennard, PhD, Mr. Rick Nesselis, Albert Pryke, Stephen Rickman, William Toms, EDD, and Mr. David Torres, pardon me. Should anybody want to look up any of the documents that I make reference to, we have links here that are available. And if I can get to the chat box, I would be happy to copy and paste them there. I may have to wait until I'm finished with my presentation because it's not giving me that option right now. But there are links on the city website. And basically, if you don't have access to the actual link, if you go to cabq.gov and in the search engine, put in the word CASA and a list, or there will be a link that will come up to a list of all documents related to the court-approved settlement agreement, AKA the CASA. So the CASA has 10 different sections. Use of force, specialized units, crisis intervention, policies and training, misconduct, complaint, intake, investigation, and adjudication. That would be IAPS. Staffing, management, and supervision, recruitment, selection and promotions, officer assistance and support, community engagement and oversight, and the 10th one, which is not listed here for some reason, implementation and compliance. The CASA contains 344 total paragraphs. 276 of them are measurable. And there are 3 levels of compliance that the 276 paragraphs are measured by, which are primary, secondary, and operational. Primary compliance basically means that there are policies and procedures in place. Secondary compliance relates to training, and operational compliance means that equates to daily operations. Here we have a table that shows the compliance levels over time. So that would include the number of measurable paragraphs only. And as you can see from IMR 1, which was in May of 2015, all the way over to the most current one that I'm reporting on now, May of 2021, you can see some significant changes happened within about the IMR 4 period of time. And then things have moved a little slower. Here, currently we have 100% compliance in terms of the primary compliance, which means the policies are in place. 82% of them are in at least secondary compliance, which means that the training has occurred, and 59% would be the operational number. Now, comparing the last independent monitors report, IMR 12 to IMR 13, the numbers are primary 100% to both. In the secondary compliance was 91 compared to 82% this time, which is a drop. And operational also dropped a little bit from 64 to 59%. So since the last report, the following changes occurred. There was no change in the primary compliance. There was a loss of 9.9% in secondary compliance and a loss of 7.8% in the operational compliance. So in the next several slides, we have an analysis of the compliance levels for the 10 different sections. So use of force would be in your upper left-hand side of the slide, and the total number of paragraphs. Actually, use of force paragraphs are 14 through 89 too. I don't know if anybody follows the documents that closely, but of those paragraphs, 3 of them increased in compliance during this time frame, the most recent reporting period. The number of paragraphs that stayed the same were 44, and the total number of paragraphs with decreased compliance were 29. Specialized units are paragraphs 90 through 109, and the total number of paragraphs with increased compliance, and I've got to change something here so that I can see. I'm sorry, I can't see all of my screen. Let me minimize that. There we go. The total number of paragraphs with increased compliance are 1. The paragraphs that remain the same were 19, and none of the paragraphs decreased in compliance. Crisis intervention is represented by paragraphs 110 through 137. The total number of paragraphs with increased compliance were 0. 22 did not change, and 5 of them went down. Policies and training, which would be the lower right-hand side, the number that increased were 0. The number of paragraphs with no changes were 20, and the total number of paragraphs that decreased were 3. Then we have misconduct, complaint, intake, investigation, and adjudication, which is basically IAPS. That would be paragraphs 162 through 202. 1 paragraph increased, 37 remained the same. 2 of them decreased in compliance. And by decreasing, they probably only decreased by 1 level. So for example, they might have gone from operational to secondary. Now the next one would be staffing, management, and supervision. That is, the paragraph numbers for that section are 203 to 231. There were no paragraphs with increased compliance. 29 remained the same, and 1 decreased. Recruitment, selection, and promotions are paragraphs 232 to 246. The number of paragraphs that increased, 0. The number that stayed the same, 14, and none of them decreased. As far as officer assistance and support, that would be paragraphs 247 to 253. The total number of paragraphs with increased compliance is 0. Total number of paragraphs with no change in compliance is 7. And the total number with decreased compliance is 0. And with the last 2, community engagement and oversight, paragraphs 254 to 293. The total paragraphs that increased were 3, stayed the same, 30, and 5 decreased. And then the last section being implementation and compliance, the total that stayed the same were 0, or that increased, excuse me, and stayed the same were 0, and then 1 paragraph decreased in compliance. And I know that I ran through that really fast, and that is all that I have. So I will take questions if there are any. Thank you. And I'm happy to go back to a previous slide if anybody would like for me to do so.
I have a question. I don't know which paragraph it is that concerns the CPC. And are we in compliance? Are we still in compliance? Are we doing better or worse?
Well, hang on a minute, and I'll look. It would be in the community engagement section.
I believe those would be paragraphs 260 and above. And looking at all of those, I believe the CPOA paragraphs are in compliance to include operational.
Yes, that's correct.
That's good to hear.
Good job, everybody.
We've done one thing right. So Rebecca, or do you go by Rebecca or Becky?
Both, actually. Depends on how you know me, but mostly by Rebecca.
Okay. Do you know, can you tell us what's driving this shift down in compliance?
Yes. Of course, there hasn't been a full analysis done of that, but considering the the involvement that I have with my position at APD, I would say that a lot of it has to do with Tier 4 use of force training. And that's somewhat, almost entirely in a way, COVID-19 related. And I know that this may sound like an excuse, but it actually is a reality. There are about, I think it's either 46 to 50 paragraphs in the CASA that are related to the training academy. And when they're not able to deliver training because of something like COVID, it can and did affect a lot of different things. So and Commander Sanchez may be able to address this better than I can, but the Tier 4 use of force training is a reality-based training module, which requires a lot of personal contact with individuals, which was not allowable during, the lockdown period that we had that kept extending throughout the year. And the academy did shift to doing some things virtually if they could. However, that requires a lot of work in curriculum development to do that. And they did it where they could and however they could. But overall, it affected paragraphs across the board. And
Yes,
Commander Sanchez, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
That's correct. You got everything that basically what it is. And the whole idea was with the reality-based training with the Tier 4, the importance of that was taking the training, not just from a classroom training and from whether it was on Power DMS and the policies, and actually using it and applying it. And just the way that the RBT training works is that you would have officers, they go through different scenarios, and it doesn't just include how they react to those scenarios, but they get feedback on those scenarios. And then after those scenarios are done, they actually have to go and do a use of force report on that scenario and the documentation that would go with it.
Yeah, it's an amazing system of training that we have in place, and it's not surprising that, as you said, the amount of hands-on that it requires. Really, there's just no way to do a virtual hands-on training. So it makes sense that that's been an issue. I think one of the other drivers that we've seen and that has been talked about a lot continues to be the use of force investigations. And we do have the city bringing on the external force investigation team that hopefully will address that. And we'll look forward to hearing more as that gets implemented. It's important for everyone to remember that there is a significant delay between when the monitor reviews everything that's going on in the department, and there's about a 3-month delay between the end of the review period and the release of the monitor's report. So what we're seeing is are things that the city and APD have moved to address, and hopefully we'll update. Hopefully we'll see some of these things turned around in IMR 14. But I think we have a question from Dennis in the chat. Overall, are we getting better or worse? I'll turn that over actually to Superintendent Stanley. How would you like to, in your new role, how would you like to address that?
Well, thank you, sir. I would like to think we're getting better. We've come a long ways. We have a long ways. And I just want to really emphasize that, as you well stated, reference to the pandemic, for a whole year of that training really put us behind schedule on some of the stuff where we had to go hands-on and with reality contact. But now we're back picking up where we left off. And you're absolutely right. I think the MR 14 and 15 is really going to show the hard work that the men and women in the department is doing to try to be in compliance with this. 12 and 13, yes, the yesteryears. We also have a new administration, a new direction that's sitting at the helm. So all of those things is going to account for the direction we're going. Chief Medina now is on board driving the ship. We're working with the reform stuff. And so I think the men and women are working really hard at this. We got a ways to go, as you can tell from the report, but it's really going to take, and I appreciate you guys giving the comments to the men and women that this took a while, because those are the officers who need to hear that. They hear all the negative stuff that comes out in the paper, even from the reports, but people just don't actually see that these guys are really out there trying to make this work. And positive reinforcement sort of help for them guys getting some of the negativity and getting down upon themselves, and we'll continue pushing to the goalposts. Thank you.
And I would also like to add, thank you for pointing out that the reports are delayed. They're not, they're based on, a few months earlier. So things are different and are changing. So thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and as Superintendent Stanley pointed out, since this report was compiled, we have seen some major changes in command at APD with Superintendent Stanley is here for one. We have Chief Medina now in place. And I think, yeah, we're going to see some more changes. I hope that we will continue to see the commitment from APD staff, the command staff to make this reform process an ongoing success. We have certainly come a long way. There are things that need to change, and that's what comes out in these IMR reports. So I think Rose asked, what is it going to take to get caught back up on the use of force training? I think it's going to take the opening up of our lockdown restrictions, which we're seeing. And then it's going to take some time for APD to get back and get all of these officers, every officer on the force, process through their routine training, the ongoing on-the-job training, all of these things. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get all of those things caught up. And but we are seeing some very positive steps since IMR 13 reporting period ended. So let's hope that 14 and 15 show some positive changes, and we can get back into that continued moving forward. It's going to take 2 years. Once we reach operational compliance on everything, there's a 2-year period where we have to maintain that level before the DOJ will sign off and the judge will sign off and say, we're done. So this is not going to happen in the next week or two. It's a long process. It's taken us a long time to get to where we are. But I'd just like to take this opportunity to address the union's campaign that they have put out about crime matters. And I appreciate that the union understands that people in the city are concerned about crime, but the message that somehow we can make DOJ go away is not valid. This is not something that the city has any say in. We are under court mandate because of past actions of the department, and we do not have a choice but to work through this process, no matter how long it takes or how difficult it is for us. We're going to work through it, and that's all there is to it. We can wish DOJ away, but it doesn't work that way. It's like a prisoner going to the warden and saying, "Hey, boss, I think I've done enough time here. I think you should just go ahead and let me go now." We can't do that. DOJ is here. The oversight is here. We need to work through it.
I just add one quick thing in regards to community compliance. I'd just like to point out tonight at this meeting, we have 5 representatives at your meeting from the police department. Myself, the commander, the lieutenant, recruiting sergeant, and there may be more that's online. But I'd just like to point that out because the department is getting involved in the community. They are attending these meetings, and we're trying to bridge that partnership with the community and the police department. And I just wanted to point that out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riles, did you want to speak?
I'm sorry, that was an errant hand wave. Please
All right.
forgive me.
No worries. All right. So APD really is, and now that we're getting some of these restrictions listed, as you heard, we do have the upcoming town hall, and that's next Tuesday. And another announcement for everyone, this Friday, and I'll go ahead and put this in the chat for you. We have the very first, I think in over a year, Coffee with a Cop coming up. And this is happening in the Northeast. It's at Montgomery and Jefferson, Friday from 11 to 1. And this is, again, an opportunity for folks to come out and talk one-on-one with APD officers and APD command staff. And in a much less formal setting, where you bring your questions and get an answer right there in person. COVID shut down all of these meetings for a long time, but this is great to see that APD is getting these started again. So that's this Friday is Coffee with a Cop, and we'll keep you posted on the next opportunity we have for one in the Northwest. And then next Tuesday is the town hall. So APD is really trying to reach out, not just through the CPCs, but one-on-one with the officers to hear from the community in new ways. As if you were here last month, Chief Medina mentioned the ambassadors program. And that's a new system, a new program that the chief started where officers of different ethnicities or belonging to different groups are reaching out as on a personal level to members of those communities. So Native American, Asian and Pacific Islanders, different religious groups. So the chief has implemented this policy where groups that have been perhaps less represented now will have representation in the department. So I think, again, this is another positive step that the department's taking. And this is a part of emphasizing the community in community policing. So take advantage of these opportunities. If you've got questions, you've got concerns or complaints, there are folks here ready, willing to listen and get you solutions. The commander is here with us every month, and he's always been very generous about responding to questions or concerns that folks raise, and we certainly appreciate that. So there we go. There's our update on Coffee with a Cop, June 22nd, here in the Northwest. So stay tuned for details on that. Go ahead, Tommy.
Rebecca, when you had that list of the people from the DOJ, Elizabeth wasn't there. Did she retire?
The list that I rattled off was actually the list of the people with the independent monitoring team. And Elizabeth is still with us, but she's a member of the DOJ team.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No worries.
She liked us. No, she liked us.
And we like her. And she's actually, I believe she's here with us as an attendee tonight. So yes, we're Elizabeth Martinez is one of the lawyers with the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ and has played a significant role in the CPCs and the CASA for the city. Okay, there you go. She popped up in the chat for us. So she is here. All right. Do we have any questions for Rebecca or for Superintendent Stanley?
I have one question that I wanted to ask. I guess Superintendent Stanley would probably be the best person to answer this question, but we had Commander Lowe on another meeting recently, and she said that getting police to move over to internal affairs duty is not particularly easy. You know, it's not exactly a sought after job. Once you get someone to move over from another job, what is the amount of training time it takes for one to be an adequate IAFD police officer? And how long do they stay in the position generally?
Well, training is a hot topic. To get one to move over, to get the initial amount of training, the initial training to get one started with approximately 40 hours of training, but that's just preliminary. You know, we're going to be learning the whole time you're in that unit because there's changes to different policies, but 40 hours would get them into the basic. And you're right, it's a tough area. A lot of officers that if they're working internal affairs or working force, until they get there and try that, they think that they're snitching against the other officers and they don't want to be in that role. But we're working on some different alternatives as where we will rotate. I think we're in an agreement and some conversation with about rotating officers through there so everybody can get a feel for what it's like in affairs in the force area, and may want to come back and take that on as a permanent job. And I think after we get past this initial hump, like I say, you know, that's a couple of bad years, but I think we're making headway. And I think you will see that in itself will change the image and the desire of some of the officers who are in other divisions of the department to go and take a stand in internal affairs force and investigate. We want to make sure we give them necessary training. You know, as it was mentioned earlier, the EFIT is coming into town. That's going to be some assistance to the officers. And we're looking at all kinds of different avenues, giving them the necessary tools. But it's all about training to make sure that they have the tools they need to do in order to be. That's where we're at.
Can I assume this is a national thing amongst police? It's probably difficult to get officers to transfer to internal affairs division in a lot of police departments. It's just kind of the way it is.
I think it's the way it is. Not everybody. You will find some officers with a desire to work in internal affairs. But I think when you find most of those officers who are willing to go to affairs, I think those are departments not under consent decree. And so different and their attitude or their want in order to be part of internal affairs. And we're going to change that. And hopefully we'll be successful down the road.
Okay. Well, one other quick question, just for interest. You mentioned 40 hours of initial training. How does that compare to other departments, like say detectives or narcotics or another department?
Well, I'll indicate that there's a learning experience, basic training, but even in investigation, the basic training, robbery or burglary detection, or maybe even child abuse, the standard is about 40 hours. This is for the initial training. But I also said training is a continuation. It takes much more that to come to perfect that. But the 40 hours will give basic training in the door. It will learn you, it will teach you how to do a proper interview and interrogations. It'll teach you how to take statements And these are some of the basic things how we have to do case preparation. All of these things are very important in order to be successful, not only in internal affairs, but in any investigative unit or any special you have to have.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes.
So Superintendent, I've heard of some departments of require officers to do time in internal affairs before they move on to the other detective divisions or move from a patrolman to an investigator position. Has APD considered that, or is that something that's, well, I guess hasn't been considered?
Well, not so much as the requirement, but as I indicated, that we're with the union and trying to take officers through internal affairs for a small stint to give them an overview, so everybody, and hopefully there'll be a better out in the field after they see some of the mistakes that maybe themselves and their coworkers are making. Most that some departments doing that. Most departments, internal affairs is probably one of the last places that you will go. I think most young, they go to a property crime. They start working property crime, a lot work child abuse, and a lot goes into narcotics, but they soon find out narcotics is not really where they want to be. Narcotics is a lot more work and stuff as some of the glamorous stuff you see on television that these guys just driving around kicking in doors all day. I think, but we're looking at some alternatives, and because of the situation here, we want to change the perception of internal affairs. And we have some good people assisting us, they having to do their job, the DOJ, the internal monitors. We all have jobs in this thing. We all got into this pickle, whatever reason. And so we got to work together to get out of here. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And so as part of our job as APD to make sure that our people are in compliance and get to where we need to be. You're right. You mentioned earlier, it'll be 2 to 3 years afterwards, once this thing is over with, before we're in complete compliance. So we got a little ways to go down the road, but I'm confident that with the men and women, and as we mentioned earlier with the recruiting, we're chief is targeting this fall. We're targeting 70 individuals in each class. We'll see if we get, in reality, we'll probably end up with about 60 people in the class, but we're 70. But all of those things are going to help make us successful to get the necessary manpower on board. So we'll have enough manpower to do. As we talked, Commander Lowe even mentioned it, because of the shortage of people that want to go work in IT force, we've opened it up to civilians. The first batch, we received 17 applications. At the end of the day, at the process, there were 6 people that passed the process. So that's lower than we anticipated. The posting is open again. I'll throw that recruiting thing out to your listeners and your members there. If you think you want to work as a civilian, if you want to work internal cases for the police department, hey, it's posted on the city webpage. Please fill out an application and we'll go through the process.
I think that's actually a really important statement to realize that out of 17 people who applied, only 6 advanced beyond the screening. I mean, that tells us we're not just looking to put warm bodies in seats. This is an intense process to get qualified people who are going to be able to do this difficult job. So kudos to the city, and hopefully we'll get more folks in and eventually get a fully staffed and capable unit. But it's important to have those high standards for such an important job.
In case somebody knows somebody who's watching right now or may get the link, very basically in basic terms, what are the requirements for being in the civilian IAFT force?
Well, it's going to be the basic one. No criminal background, willing to take on and willing to work, because there will be a lot of work in internal affairs, and go through the background screening as we have all city employees. And there will be a physical, and then we'll go from there. And that gets the ball game going.
So is there an educational requirement, or is there will military help?
Well, military always help, because military seems to give people that dignity, learn how to follow instructions. Right? Being a veteran myself, I understand military is always great. Yes, sir, that helps. If you're a military, we also make sure that we want to interview the people who are to go through the process. But a minimum of 12 years of, I'm sorry, and I didn't mention that, but I just took it for granted, a minimum of a high school education. If you have some college, that helps too. That helps you get through the rest of the process. But it will also help you understand the investigative process. Once you start, if you're selected to start doing the investigation, it would just help.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. We are not getting many questions this evening for a change. Remember, you can always, if you have a question, you can always type it into the chat. So let me see, our next meeting is scheduled for June 16th. I understand Bernalillo County went into the turquoise level of restrictions as of today. So that's another step up the ladder for us, getting closer to being fully reopened. And for right now, our current plan is to have a Zoom meeting for June. If the community centers open up before that meeting, we will see about making changes to that. We are looking forward to getting back to in-person meetings, and we will be we're working on figuring out a way to have in-person meetings with an online presence. So if you're unable to join us in person at the community centers, we're going to do our best to make sure you can interact with the council and presenters, et cetera, through Zoom or Facebook Live or some combination. But we are hoping to have a hybrid model going forward. Our June 16th meeting, working on getting representatives from the academy to join us to talk more in depth about what the actual training is that our officers are going through. So you heard about the reality-based training a little bit tonight. We want to know what that is, what type of diversity training the officers are undergoing, what kind of legal education they get through the academy. So just a better understanding of all of the units and modules that they learn while a cadet is at the academy, that makes them prepared to get on the street and continue on with on-the-job training, which of course is the next phase of learning after they complete the academy. So hopefully we'll have that arranged for June 16, and we will do at minimum a Zoom meeting. If we can meet in person, we look forward to that, but we will see how things develop. All right. I don't see any other, if anybody has questions, please let me know now. Anything else from the board? Jeff, Tom?
Kelly, there's a meeting next week.
A meeting, our what do we call that? Our staff meeting is on Saturday with all of the council members, Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
No, I meant next week, the Northwest. Is it next week that we have the Northwest is going to speak, or they're going to have something for the Northwest?
Yeah, that's the town hall on Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Yes.
The town hall.
Yeah, so Tuesday.
So you had them already. What are they like?
We've had, I believe, 4 town halls now. The town halls deal with diversity in the Albuquerque Police Department, dealing with these issues that are national right now. Use of force with other communities, Black, Hispanic, Native American communities, and what APD is doing to differentiate itself from the rest of the country, how the police deal with suspects and also people they come in contact with in other communities, and what sort of training, specialized training the police have. So far, I think we've gotten good results on this. I think APD has shown itself very well as being ahead of the curve as far as police departments go. And I think it's been good for bringing the community together, because it allows people in these communities to see that the police department are not scary, terrible people, and that they are, in often cases, members of the community in which they serve, and they have had the training, and they are looking forward to treating everyone alike, as though these issues don't exist at all. So far, I think we've gotten positive response, and I'm hoping in the Northwest town hall goes as well.
And you're going to send out the invites to this for everybody on the Northwest list of CPC?
Certainly, yes.
Yeah, and I can, the information was on the agenda, but I'll go ahead and I can send out to our mailing list an update and a reminder for folks so that everybody gets an opportunity to join in on that.
I did have one quick question for our guest, Rebecca Monette, if you have a second. It seemed as though the numbers that were posted, there was a big jump after year 3 with the IMR committee, and then the numbers were steady for a while, and then it may have been a blip this year in which we went down slightly. How does that compare with other police departments around the country that have a consent decree as well? Do you have any idea?
No, sir, I don't have any data on that. Perhaps Superintendent Stanley or Commander Sanchez may, but we have not studied that to my knowledge.
I can only speak to this, that a lot of agencies is under consent decree. They end up being in these things a long term, 7, 8, 10 years. I think LAPD was 14 years. Portland was like 8 years. So I know that's not answering your question directly, but what I guess my point is I'm trying to drive home is that no agency that gets in the consent decree or in there for 6 months or a year or maybe even 2 years. So I'm thinking a minimum of 5 years or less to get out of money. Because when you things, there's been some issues, then take the correct those, move forward.
And is it a matter of minimums and percentages that in which they'll say, well, we no longer need to have this consent decree for Albuquerque?
I think, and I'm probably not the one to answer this, but I think at the end of the decree, after the Justice Department review all the data collected and all the compliance, I think they're the one who will make that ultimate decision where we're ready to move forward. That we've come a long ways, that we've made the necessary corrections with the monitor. But the Justice Department, it's their baby at the end of the day. They'll be the one to make that.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Oh, if I may add to that, when it comes to how we will get out of this, the settlement agreement or what's going to be required. The reason the percentages are important is because we are required to be at operational compliance on these paragraphs. Once we get into operational compliance, then we have to maintain that compliance for at least 2 years. That's when the courts, DOJ, and the city start to have talks about getting out of this. But it's always, once we meet that operational compliance, it's going to require at least 2 years for us to stay in that. Everything that we deal with is, for example, if we have a paragraph that's in compliance, we have to continue to maintain 95% or better. So that 95% is always important, even for audits. For example, we have audits that we do in a specific area, let's just say supervision or OBRDs. Each team that is audited has to show that 95% or above compliance. So I don't know if that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea, that we're always going to have those 2 extra years, at least 2 extra years after operational compliance.
Excellent. Thank you, Commander. All right. I don't see any other questions or comments from the community. So
I got a question, couple
Oh, yeah,
here,
go ahead,
Eric.
Jeff.
Commander, how's your manpower level? Did you get any additional, because the last class that graduated was a month ago, did you get any additional people to the Northwest Command?
Yes, sir, we did. We did get a few people. The numbers for the area command did go down a little bit. We did have a couple of officers that put in requests to retire and some that resigned. So our numbers did go down a little bit. We got new sergeants. We have a new lieutenant for day shift coming in. We're going to be getting more officers with this next academy that'll get off OJT. And I'm not sure if the academy's still on here or not, but my understanding that we were, that there are officers that are getting off OJT, I believe around June or July. So we will be getting more officers. We had a meeting this morning regarding that and the bid that's coming up and when they're going to have it. So.
That's right. It's that time of year to bid.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that's always a good time because that's when we start reevaluating. Each area command starts reevaluating those numbers. We start taking those statistics and start determining where we need to focus our manpower. And usually the beginning of the bids are always, you'll see a lot more officers within the area commands, just because that's when we go through the numbers again. Later on in the bids, unfortunately, I've been here 20 years and it is something that is constant. When you get towards the end of the bid, there's a little bit less numbers because there's openings, there's transfers. So, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. Eric, I've seen Susan's waiting for an application approval. Who all needs to get together to do that?
That's going to be the whole CPC. But before we move on, Lieutenant Saladin, did you want to speak about the folks coming off OJT?
Yes, the commander's correct. So this summer we'll have 44 getting off OJT and going to the field.
That's good.
Excellent. Good to hear.
So we want what? 30 of the 44.
I live in the Northwest, so I would support that.
I'm fighting for all of them.
There you go. We'll take everyone.
I was being generous. Yeah. Trying to protect the other part of the city, but.
Yeah, but we have, it helps that the chief lives in the Northwest too. So we'll put in a good word with him about getting us all up to staff. So yeah, back to your other question, Jeff. We need to have the CPC needs to go ahead and schedule a meeting and get all of our applicants together and go over the CPC membership with them and make sure we're all on the same page and then get them on board. So we're going to work on getting that done very soon here. I think we've wasted enough time. We've delayed this too long already, and we need to get those folks on board.
And
So
that's small enough of a meeting. If I recall correctly, each person gets an appointment time, and that's small enough of a meeting that we could do it in person over at the rec center. And I think we're getting low on our numbers. Not that I mean, if people don't want to be on it, that's fine. But you know, need to keep the right mix of people in there.
absolutely.
And if Rachel Donovan's interested in it, I'd vouch for her right now. I've worked with her a lot over the last 3-4 years.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll, I think as we're starting to open up more, we can probably do an in-person meeting. And we'll try to get that scheduled, get the folks in, and go ahead and get our board expanded again. We have, as you mentioned, lost some folks to other positions or to other needs. So we definitely have room on the board or on the council to bring these folks on and have them start playing a more active role. So we appreciate their patience, and I do apologize to everybody that is waiting. We will get this resolved quickly and get those folks on board. Okay. So yeah, Dr. Mack, and we look forward to hearing from you and from hopefully Rachel and the other folks who are waiting for. Susan has been waiting very patiently for a long time. So we'll get this resolved to get you folks on board in the very near future here. So as Kelly posted in the chat, want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. A special thank you to Rebecca for joining us and giving us that update on the IMRs, where we are and how CAS is going. And a thank you to our recruiting section, Sergeant Silva for the update, and Lieutenant Saladin for your input. And it's always a great pleasure to have the commander and Pete Gallipert with us. They're here every month, and we appreciate them taking the time to update us. And of course, thank you especially for Superintendent Stanley, who wasn't planning on being a part of the discussion tonight. We appreciate you stepping in and answering questions.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
All right. So everyone stay tuned for further updates. We will be meeting June 16th by Zoom at least, if not in person as well. And hopefully we will have news and updates from the Academy at that meeting. All right. Well, thank you everyone again. I hope you all stay safe, stay well, and enjoy the hopefully upcoming decent weather and getting outdoors, perhaps without your masks on. Something new and exciting to get back to. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will call this the end of the meeting, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Eric.
Yes, sir.
I was on that subcommittee that they had, but they were meeting on the third Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So I couldn't continue on that, but they were trying to come up with some things that would be across the board. I don't know how far they've gotten. And Kelly, do you know when that's going to end?
Which meeting is this? I'm sorry.
Those are the subcommittee meetings.
Okay. We don't really have an ending process for this. It's probably going to go on for a few months until some of what we come up with is implemented. We're still in the planning stage of a lot of this. I think that a lot of the people on this council, being very professional, have a tendency to go about this as it's their job, and we have 40 hours a week to work on it. So, it's taking a little longer to get things nailed down, but
I know they were getting together some recommendations before I had to leave, and it was just their timing wasn't working for me. But
well, You could always throw a little Brooklyn bluntness in there. That can help things move along, you know.
Yeah.
I tell you, Tommy, if you can join us on Saturday, one of the things in that Saturday's meeting is going to be an update from each of these groups. So we'll get a sense of where we are and what's going on, what needs to be worked on. So
I don't know. Saturdays are busy, but
yeah,
you can
it's-
always get that information and maybe bring it up to us next month.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll update everybody on what's going on. And by that time, hopefully we'll have some more folks on the council.
And I can send you the notes if you'd like. Shoot me an email and I'll send you the notes from the meetings if you're interested, and you can take a look over it.
No, but I understand that they wanted to try to come up with some new ideas about how to do things citywide, not just for us. So
Yeah,
I was just wondering how it ever, wound up,
yeah, still going,
All right.
still working on it. Still some room for changes and improvements.
Yeah, we're meeting
Okay.
roughly once a month now, probably for the foreseeable future till the end of the year. So.
Okay, guys.
All right.
Have a nice night.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.